Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining Appamada Inquiry today. Again, I see many longtime friends and longtime members of the Appamada Sangha, and some new names that I don't know, or maybe whose faces I might recognize, but don't know the names of. But welcome. And I am here today. Oh my gosh, here's Peg connecting. I'm going to be pretty wild in our talk today, or what I'm going to share today. So it's it's special to see Peg connecting here too. So first, let's sit together for about 10 minutes. Allow some other people to come in, time for others to join, and then I'll have some things to say, and then I hope there'll be plenty of time for questions and reflections, and what really matters about our inquiry, which is that it is our group inquiry into our practice. Okay, so please sit upright, square your shoulders so that they're in line with your hips. Take a deep breath and let it go, and then settle into each moment as it passes. Again, thank you so much for being here today. I want to thank our teachers, Peg and Flint, and the at least dotted line, if not completely unbroken line, of teachers going back to the Buddha, who've given their lives to sharing the Dharma. And what a wonderful thing that is, how that has affected us and has changed so many things in our world and has so much potential for change in our world. Thank you. I want to thank Ed for being our monitor today, and all the people who give their time to be monitors and to enable us to connect across unimaginable distances. Pardon me. And pardon me that I'm going to be coughing. It's still going on. And I want to thank all those who have who worked to make Zoom possible for us, starting with Peg, who first explored it, and it's turned into quite a robust system that we can use to connect, and I really love that. So I'm going to launch into my talk. A couple weeks ago, Trudy Johnston led inquiry. As so often with Trudy, there was a lot of warmth and humor in what she shared, built around a pretty serious ethical inquiry about our practice. What I've been thinking about most came in the actual inquiry part. Cassie came forward with a question and a comment. And Trudy said, yeah, that points to a really important question. How can we keep having mercy on ourselves for being the hot mess that we are? That connects with a lot that's in the Dharma. I want to extend what Trudy was saying by later on reading a Pablo Neruda poem in which he is being a really hot mess. And I want to see if you agree with me that Neruda is actually meeting the world and himself with mercy by exploring what teacher Joan Sutherland has called endarkenment, and in a way that points us to how we can meet all of us, all of ourselves, and bring them into our practice in a way that points us toward the bodhisattva vow. Joko Beck, I've referenced this many times in talks that I've given, but Joko Beck gave a talk in the 1980s that's not in one of her books, but it's called The Pools. It was published in her newsletter in the 1980s, the San Diego Center newsletter. I've lost my printed copy, and I can't find it on the internet now, but what I recall is that Joko built on the metaphor of people in the desert coming to an oasis and finding some pools there, and to heal themselves on the trek, they enter the pools. Some take off their dirty clothes and their heavy backpacks first. Others enter just as they are. And Joko compares that situation to coming to Zazen. She suggested it's better to take everything into Zazen, including all the stuff that one would like to leave behind: anger, pain, grief, envy, sloth, and so on. And that Zazen can help in integrating those things into our lives instead of trying to just slough them off and then picking them up again when we leave the meditation space. In the introduction to Joko's book, Everyday Zen, Joko's student Elihu Genmyo Smith writes, there is a way of practice, excuse me, which I call working with everything, including emotions, thoughts, sensations, and feelings. Instead of pushing or keeping them away with our mind like an iron wall or boring through them with our concentration power, we open ourselves up to them. We develop an awareness of what is occurring moment by moment, what thoughts are arising in passes, what emotions we are experiencing, and so on. Instead of a narrow, focused concentration, broad awareness is our concentration. And in keeping with what Trudy was saying before, that broad awareness has to have a sense of mercy in it, for ourselves and for others. And I think that really that's required, or really that practice would be either walling off parts of ourselves or would simply be unsustainable. I'm grateful that Peg and Flint have expanded on Joko's practice with everything insight by providing additional tools, additional language, and additional modes of thinking about what we meet inside ourselves, in Zazen, and in our practice in the world. In particular, internal family systems, the language of internal family systems therapy. I'm looking at people on the screen, and I see many practitioners who know a lot more about this than I ever do or ever will. But I'm just going to give a little précis here of what I think it might be. Joko said, drawing on many centuries of Zen teaching, that what we call emotion is not the singular phenomenon that it often seems to be. Instead, through patient, equanimous inquiry, we can see for a combination of thoughts, maybe like a remembered confrontation, that gets connected with, or maybe even preceded by, a bodily sensation, a quickening of the pulse, or a sinking feeling. Joko's advice, which was told to me by Peg and the very first time I met her in practice discussion, which I talked about last week, Joko's advice was look for the space between that thought and the sensation. And you can see that they are not just one thing, and that by seeing that difference, there might be an opening to a glimpse of freedom that you can come back to and expand upon. Peg and Flint, using the language of IFS, point out that what we call our mind is not itself either a simple phenomenon. In IFS terms, we have many parts with different roles, vulnerable parts, managers, firefighters, and so on. And if we can equanimously look at how those parts interact, we can have a sense of the wholeness of them, and that the way that they are only partial, and yet mercifully that they are all doing their best to help us moment by moment integrate with what's going on in the world. Okay, so there's that background. And now, like I say, I want to jump into this poem, which to me is pretty shocking. There's one line in it that I considered skipping over where he talks about killing a nun, but I hope that that will not be too triggering. It's one line among many triggering lines, but kind of the worst of them. I'm going to share it on the screen, but it might be better to just listen. So, Rosemarie, raise your thumb if you can see it, if it looks big enough to see. Okay, great. So I've got to move it around on my screen so I can see it fully. Okay, so this is a poem that was translated into English by Robert Bly. It so happens I am sick of being a man. And it happens that I walk into tailor shops and movie houses, dried up, waterproof, like a swan made of felt, steering my way in a water of wombs and ashes. The smell of barbershops makes me break into hoarse sobs. The only thing I want is to lie still like stones or wool. The only thing I want is to see no more stores, no gardens, no more goods, no spectacles, no elevators. It so happens I am sick of my feet and my nails and my hair and my shadow. It so happens I am sick of being a man. Still, it would be marvelous to terrify a law clerk with a cut lily, or kill a nun with a blow on the ear. It would be great to go through the streets with a green knife letting out yells until I died of the cold. I don't want to go on being a root in the dark, insecure, stretched out, shivering with sleep, going on down into the moist guts of the earth, taking in and thinking, eating every day. I don't want so much misery. I don't want to go on as a root and a tomb, alone under the ground, a warehouse with corpses, half frozen, dying of grief. That's why Monday, when it sees me coming with my convict face, blazes up like gasoline and howls on its way like a wounded wheel, and leaves tracks full of warm blood leading toward the night. And it pushes me into certain corners, into some moist houses, into hospitals where the bones fly out the window, into shoe shops that smell like vinegar, and certain streets hideous as cracks in the skin. There are sulfur-colored birds and hideous intestines hanging out the doors of houses that I hate. And there are false teeth forgotten in a coffee pot. There are mirrors that ought to have wept from shame and terror. There are umbrellas everywhere, and venoms, and umbilical cords. I stroll along serenely, with my eyes, my shoes, my rage, forgetting everything. I walk by, going through office buildings and orthopedic shops, and courtyards with washing hanging from the line, underwear, towels, and shirts from which slow, dirty tears are falling. What I wonder when I read this is Neruda suffering when he describes this? Is he meeting his inner parts honestly and equanimously, offering himself in a kind of mercy to his readers like a bodhisattva, going into the dark on his path to light? I lean toward the second option there. It is a very dark poem, and one that really resonates with me, being a man of a certain age, and hating my shoelaces and my toenails and all of that stuff, and seeing all the pain in this world. I think I mentioned this recently, actually just yesterday, to someone I was meeting with in practice discussion, and she said, "Oh yeah, that's just like Rumi's poem, the guest house." So I won't read the whole guest house poem here. It's very familiar to many, I know. But it ends, "Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond." All the depression, the meanness, and everything that comes with it. That's, of course, in Coleman Barks' evocation from other translations of Rumi's poems. So I want to read one more longish quote, and then I want to open to the questions and reflections that bring us together today. And it's from Joan Sutherland, whom I mentioned before. She says, "There's a phase of awakening that includes, surprisingly, endarkenment as well as enlightenment. Awakening is a marriage of wisdom and compassion, and both wisdom and compassion are made up of enlightening and endarkening. The enlightening aspect of wisdom is a growing clarity of insight that puts doubts to rest and creates confidence. It's about what we come to understand. The endarkening aspect of wisdom is our profound acceptance of the great mystery at the heart of things, which we can never understand in our ordinary ways, but can come to rest in. This is about knowing what we can't know. It's sometimes called not knowing mind. The enlightening aspect of compassion includes our shining commitment to everyone's freedom from suffering. The endarkening aspect of compassion is our willingness to have our hearts broken by the world, so our hearts remain open and not defensive, even to what's going on inside ourselves. As we endarken, we see we are not only continuous with the luminous nature of the universe, but also continuous with the great broken heart of the world. We and the world share a tenderness that is both poignant beauty and wound. It's as though revelation happens at the speed of electrical impulses in the brain, while embodiment happens at the speed of the heart, which is a slow beating muscle. So, please bring forth questions about your experience, and even those endarkened aspects of experience. Can you include endarkenment in your vow? When you do, can you bring mercy to yourself? Is the teaching of our teachers helpful to you in finding language for bringing that mercy to yourself, as it has been for me? I hope so. So I'm going to switch to gallery view here. I see, pardon me if I'm going to mispronounce your first name, Leah. Am I saying that right? Or Leah?
Leah.
Leah, thank you. Thank you for raising your hand. And I don't think you and I have spoken together before.
No, I don't think so. But I was at the Trudy's session last week, and I love how you're connecting this, and the teaching is finding me with a question today.
Ah,
Yeah. And it's not very well formed, but it's a situation that um, it's one of those things you feel like I have the tools for this, but I'm looking for relational, just not being alone in it today. So, um, and it's being in relationship with someone who maybe, seems to find themselves in darkened situations. Not that they themselves have in darkened sort of behaviors or anything like that, but when someone's continuously very under resourced because their situation is so dire all the time, um, and I find myself most of the time able to summon, like work with my parts and summon compassion for myself, and then relate back, in a way that feels true to me. But then sometimes it feels too much. It's like, you know, why am I the only one with compassion all the time? There's that part that's that childlike part that's like, I'm I'm over it,
well, this is so hard,
Um,
right?
it is so hard.
Yeah.
And there's just parts of me that are like, I want compassion. I want um not to always have to be the one doing the work in this relationship. Um, but at the same time, holding the reality and the knowledge that my friend doesn't have a choice. She's doing her best, you know. But how do I not abandon myself in that process, to get my needs met as well? Is this constant, I feel in this relationship I'm thinking of is like a regular struggle for me.
Thank you. That's a that's a deep question, and I'm
Mhm.
sure it's one that many of us have faced in some way or another. That has echoes for many people who are listening today. So I've heard it said that it's very difficult to come forward for inquiry. You're going to ask a personal question in a public setting, but that echoes for so many who have the sense, oh yeah, that's the question I would ask too if I had had the nerve to step forward, and that
Mhm.
and that it's so and that courage of stepping forward is beneficial for many. Um, I so do not have an answer to your question except to say that I recognize that you are bringing honesty and equanimity and mercy to yourself in those times, and that it is very difficult. Particularly, I've been in situations with friends who have renewing difficulties,
Mhm.
kind of reoccurring difficulties, and who in those times in the past when I tried to say, well, have you thought of this or have you tried that? They say, yes, but, and then they pay no, they say, yeah, I've already done that. Forget it, and that they, and that's very unsatisfying for both of us.
Mhm.
And that, as you, I'm sure know that your presence, while it may be uncomfortable, perhaps more uncomfortable for you because parts get stirred up, feel drained of resources, drained for by someone who needs so much in a recurring way, um, that to be able to be present with those parts of yourself is not easy, but it is the what seems to me to be the best answer. That you stay connected with your friend, even at those points where it seems like if they're going back to the same thing over and over again, that the connection may feel broken, you know,
Mhm.
and that part of you may feel like it's being ignored, you know, even when it's doing its best,
Right,
Does that make
right.
sense?
It does. I think, when I work the process, I always come back to I need to get my own needs met
Mm-hmm.
instead of asking for them to be met as a condition of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And and then, continue to show up for them with as much capacity as I have, but no more.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish there was a better answer, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a final answer that would really resolve an
Yeah,
ongoing conflict, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm thinking of what Peg told me that first time I met her in practice discussion
Mm,
when I was describing being really locked into an emotional response to something.
mhm,
That she said, what Joko has taught is that what we call emotion is an amalgam of things. It's not just one thing, and that you can spend some time feeling the bodily sensations that go with the thought, and then you can try and hold the thought and watch it pass away while it goes, which it will do even while you're really trying to hold on to it,
mhm,
and that you can feel the bodily sensations change into something else. It's pretty hard to do that when you're in a conversation with another person. At least I have found. You want, you're in an effort to be responsive. You get caught up in a moment,
mm,
and you lose, or I lose, pardon me, I lose contact with that wisdom that what's going on is not one thing, but many things happening all at once. Some of them purely physiological, some of them, or at least seemingly purely physiological, and some of them more purely mental. And I would say extend some gratitude to the part of yourself that is doing its best in this very trying circumstance.
mhm,
It may not be enough, but it's a step on the path.
mm. Yeah.
That's the way I would see it for myself.
Mhm.
Does that seem complete, or is there
Yes.
more that
Thank
that
you.
thank you?
Yes. The gratitude really resonated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think uh, I'm I'm feeling that, and I'm even feeling just having gratitude for the parts of me that are developing into someone who has boundaries. That's new practice for me, and
Ah,
is aware of her own needs.
mm-hmm,
And I think at the beginning of this journey, it's like more fierce about it, um, than in the past, and I have some judgment about that too. So,
mm-hmm,
um, so I really love the reminder of having gratitude for that.
mm-hmm. There's gratitude to yourself, which you can bring to bear at any time. And then I would say, look around. I mean, look at where you are right now. You're talking to me. We're on a screen. I don't know where you are, Leah. Are you in Austin?
I'm in Austin. Uh-huh.
You're in Austin. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. So, but here you are joined by people
Mm.
uh, spread over several different time zones, maybe as many as 7 or 8 different time zones, all of whom are grateful to you for having shared this question and grateful to you for having stepped through what you what you can draw on in your own resources, you know?
Hmm.
So we can both be grateful that we are in this community,
Yes.
that supports
Yes.
us so much. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thanks. Thanks,
Thank
Joel.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
I see Rosemary's hand.
Hi, Paul. Hi, and thank you. I really appreciate your saying that Neruda is suffering as he's going through this and expressing himself. And I was thinking, thank goodness he writes, because he has this ability to release some of these feelings. And I was thinking of, I think it was Marianne Williamson, but someone in the group a long time ago said, everything is love or a call for love. And, I could hear that poem that way too. And Leah, thank you for coming forward with the endarkenment of someone else that you're in relationship with, and how we respond to that, those questions. So it's ourselves and what we go through, and then there's meeting those who we're with. And so you brought up vow, Joel. So I had written something a while ago that I'm going to read, but I will say that in facing some of these difficult emotions and experiences, I have a lot of shame at times about the times when I'm overwhelmed in particular. And there is a wish that I'll be done with it. But this was the vow that I wrote. Well, there's a few here, but I vow to be equally open and ready for pleasant and painful experiences, and to recognize painful experiences as treasured teachers, valued weeds to be fervently attended to, and to which I offer my deepest gratitude, while remaining curious and providing space like a good parent to a hurt and or aggressive child. I vowed to feel and to show compassion for the cause of the pain, and accept it without allowing the aversion or resentment of it and the anger and discouragement that it could produce to spread. And I use my body to calm the turbulent waters. Yeah. That's it. Thank you. I haven't read it in a while. So
I'm very grateful that you read that, Rosemarie. And I'm grateful that you're modeling the turbulence that comes up in the body that leads to tears, recognizing inherited or experienced pain and aversion and all these tangled emotions that are present, and that in yourself, in the IFS terms, that you can meet, in your Buddha nature that you can meet, and that you are bringing it into this community, that you're bringing it into the greater space of the Dharma, the teachings, and this vast, pitilessly loving universe. The
it's
love wouldn't be there. The love would not be there without what you're doing.
Thank you. It's basically be kind. Be kind, or cultivate
in
that
all
kindness.
directions, right?
All the stuff. And also recognize the kindness that's there all around. I think that's another place that we can get stuck, is that it can get very insular and claustrophobic, and not acknowledge how wide and open the world is, and that there is, kindness coming towards us all the time. I think if we can see, Thank you.
Isn't that funny? I mean, you begin with a contemplation of meeting pain, and then it flips, and you're recognizing that you're being met with kindness too. Isn't that a wonderful experience?
Yeah.
And it would not be true if you didn't start where you started, or the truth would not matter so much.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you. So Shannon, welcome.
Thank you. Apologies. I don't know if it's unique to my Zoom, but just wanted to thank you so much, Joel, for bringing this topic. I feel like sometimes in this practice, I can struggle a bit with, like, I guess a line that I perceive maybe between, like, is it my thinking that's incorrect, or is this just really dark and hard? I don't know if I'm getting this across correctly, but sort of like I think there can be a tendency sometimes, in my own thinking, sometimes in others, in my relationship, this comes up a lot with trying to see sort of the bright side of things. And I feel this need to sort of process the hard parts more, perhaps, than other people I know. Like, to just sort of sit in the darkness and let the darkness be okay, right? It's not okay because there's a silver lining. It's just okay. It's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm making the distinction clear, but for things to just be as they are, and to be able to, like, let that be what they are without any sort of, like, it's okay because I learned something, or it's okay because, our friendship got stronger, or whatever it is, right? It's just okay that it is, that some things are just dark and hard. So I kind of felt like the second bit that you read really kind of brought that up for me. And I wonder if you would read it again, so I can kind of pick out the line that really struck me.
This is the part from Joan Sutherland that you're talking about? Okay, yeah. It's from her book called In Forests of Every Color, I believe. No, it's not. It's from a piece that appeared in Lion's Roar. I'm not even sure of that. It might have been another publication, but it's from a shorter piece, not from one of her books. But I will read it again, and then I will. There was a request from Denise to post links to the texts in chat, and I won't be able to do it in chat, but I will send it out to the Appamada list, and if you're on the Appamada mail list, you'll be able to find the links to both of these things. So she says, there's a phase of awakening that includes, perhaps surprisingly, endarkenment as well as enlightenment. Awakening is a marriage of wisdom and compassion. And both wisdom and compassion are made of enlightening and endarkening. The enlightening aspect of wisdom is a growing clarity of insight that puts doubts to rest and creates confidence. It's about what we become, or what we come to understand. The endarkening aspect of wisdom is our profound acceptance of the great mystery at the heart of things, which we can never understand in our ordinary ways, but we can come to rest in. This is about knowing what we can't know, and it's sometimes called not knowing mind. And I would say for myself, the way I would phrase that is sometimes when I feel particularly a very strong emotion, that seems like I just can't handle it. I will turn toward the aversive parts of me that are scared of this and say, it's okay. I can just let this be what it is right now. Even, let it be as bad as it has to be right now. And that I can have faith that I have the resources to meet it and not be overwhelmed. The enlightening aspect of compassion includes our shining commitment to everyone's freedom from suffering. The endarkening aspect of compassion is our willingness to have our hearts broken by the world, so our hearts remain open and not defensive. As we endarken, we see that we are not only continuous with the luminous nature of the universe, but also continuous with the great broken heart of the world. We and the world share a tenderness that is both poignant beauty and wound. Is that the part?
Yeah, the endarkenness being our willingness to have our hearts broken by the world. That was the bit that grabbed me. That was like some things are just not okay. Or it's okay that things are not okay is essentially what I'm getting to.
Or that you will oscillate back and forth. You will see them as never okay, and in a bigger container where you can bear that, and then it's unbearable, and then you can bear it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just wanted to really thank you for that. I feel like it was something I needed. So appreciate you.
Thank you, Shannon. Shannon, where are you?
I am in Austin, Texas as well. We're taking over today.
Good. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
And I see the hand of Becky in British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia.
Well, Joel, this is a pretty intense one that you brought to us. I happen to like vinegar. That was one of the
ones. What's wrong with a shop that smells like vinegar? But yeah, okay. He obviously hates it.
I guess so, but for me, I grew up with vinegar as one of the important cleaning things.
Mm.
And to me, it's just a wonderful smell.
Mm.
I think I think that the quote about being like just being in the world that is like this, and so on, and have our hearts broken, um, is almost inevitable for all of us at whatever degree. And I don't quite see, unless we get caught in it, that it is what we talk about as darkness. Um, but when we get caught in it, it is that. When, and and so that's. I would also like to say something to Leah, which is that I'm in a friendship support situation here. I live in an assisted living, and one of my neighbors has had Parkinson's since he was 40 years old, and he's now 73. And he has been told that he'll be dying within the next 2 years at least, from 6 months to 2 years. And I've been spending time with him for him to try to put his life in, like the loose ends and the things that have to happen from day to day. And I think he has quite a bit of darkness going on for himself, but he holds himself completely tight and get on with business and so on. And it's quite a challenge to offer him both things that are practical and try to share some of the perspectives that have helped me through hard times, like pain and other factors, and when looking at death as a likely thing that was going to happen soonish for me at one point, and now I'm having a little respite. And what I find is that I can't ask of him to take care of anything for me because he is so deeply in what he is. And so, Leah, I would just say, look for what you need elsewhere. That's what we're here for each other for too. And so it certainly is the place that both helps me center my own experiences as well, but also to have some tools and incentive to step back in even when things have been difficult with him, which they periodically are for me. And so I've really appreciated the support in that this practice gives me and the tools. And I also want to say, I think it sounds to me like you are a very strong woman in terms of your own stuff, but having it be with us from others is really important too. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you. We have just 4 minutes of our time together, and I think I'm not seeing any hands right now, so I want to see. Let's see if I can bring it up here. I want to read The Guest House in Coleman Barks' translation because it speaks to so much of what is here and what is heartening, what is encouraging, what is strengthening in our practice that can be said in poetic form that's so hard to get to with our with our complicated minds. The guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Maybe not as a guide from beyond, but as a guide from the world as it is the way I think of it. A guide. Let's close with the 4 practice principles. Let's read them, or let's say them 3 times. And I'm going to ring a bell for us as well. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Many thanks. Ed?
Yes, many thanks to you too, Joel, for today, for every day. And just want to remind everybody to please remember that Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity, and your support makes a tremendously huge difference. There is a link for contributions on the website. So if you go to appamada.org/contribute, you can contribute to Appamada and or to a teacher. Also, if you'd like to hang on for another, we're going to do it today, for another 30 minutes, just pop yourself into gallery view, and we will be on for the online porch session, and just love to be able to have that extra time with you. So thank you all for participating, and thank you, Joel, for your support.